Hello, I'm Bill Morton, and welcome to the D Tycoon Show. This show was created by Catherine Brown, D Tycoon. And just the short of the story, we're back for another season, another 12 episodes, and we're very thankful to be back. Really enjoy this. Trudy Leung and I are co-hosting. She's in the back when I'm here and vice versa. I just want to show you guys something to tell the story a little bit. Let's see. There we go. So, Catherine Brown, D Tycoon, gave me an award, which is really, really kind of cool. Actually, let me just go over here and show it like this. She gave me an award, and the frame isn't very expensive at all or anything. But the cool thing about it is it's for honorary candidate for 2019, Moving Harold Washington Agenda Forward. Chicago is one city. We shall live as one people for our common good and our common goals. Harold Washington. So Reverend Dr. Catherine Brown, D Tycoon, gave me this award on January 23rd of 2009. And what happened was we were both candidates, municipal candidates for the city of Chicago, her mayor and me for 49th Ward Alderman. So I just want to recognize D Tycoon, because everyone wonders why is this show called D Tycoon. Now you know. All right, I'm here with a guest, Jacqueline Saper. How you do?
Well, nice to be here.
Great. So we met at the WTTW behind the scenes annual event.
Yes.
I go every year, and we met. You met with Trudy over there.
Yes.
And we were all part of the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a picture of you and Trudy. I
Wonderful.
had no idea that we'd be doing this interview at that time, but Trudy got to know you and interviewed you on Northeastern Illinois University's radio station,
WZRD.
88.3 FM,
Right.
The Wizard, and we're friends of the family at The Wizard.
Well, it's a wonderful show.
And you can find that one on YouTube, Trudy's YouTube. So tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you, but for the
Yes.
audience, please. And you can address them right there.
Well, I'm an author. I'm a columnist, translator, public speaker. I speak mainly about the Middle East and Iran. And I'm just fascinated by the topic. And I write op-ed articles which are published nationally and internationally.
Great. And as for your columns, did you have one in a what was that controversial? Maybe controversial.
About the hijab?
Was it in Breitbart?
Oh, that was, I talked to Trudy about that. That was
Yeah.
about the Holocaust, actually. It
Yes.
was nothing to do with politics.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So even though it was Breitbart, it was about the Holocaust.
It was the Holocaust, and I've written for the Seattle Times, the Jerusalem Post, the Forward, Persian Heritage, just lots of diverse, different places. But it's usually not politics. It's about Iran's culture, Iran's whatever comes up.
So can you tell me a little bit about your experience in Iran?
Well, actually, shall I look in the camera or shall I look into...
Look into my eyes. No,
Okay.
the camera's fine.
The camera's fine. Well, I was born in Iran. I grew up there until I was 26 years old. And I lived there before the revolution. You know, in 1979, there was a revolution there, the Iranian Revolution. So I grew up in Iran in pre-revolutionary era. In the 1960s and 1970s, I lived through the Iranian Revolution. And then I lived in the Islamic Republic of Iran for 8 years until I left for the United States in 1987.
Okay. So to get into the power structure of Iran, who is the current leader in Iran?
Well, the current leader is the supreme leader. He's named Ayatollah Khamenei. Ayatollah is a hierarchy. It's a rank in the Shiite Islam denomination, and he's a high-ranking cleric, and he's the supreme leader. He's been there for in this position for 30 years, and it's for life.
And how did he achieve this position?
He was elected by an assembly of experts. There are 86 clerics that they select the next supreme leader.
And does this have anything to do with like his family lineage, or does this have to do with some sort of political power?
Qualifications. But it has to be a cleric, and he's only the second supreme leader in the country since the revolution.
Okay, great. And the supreme leader, so is power shared in Iran? And if so, how?
Not much so. The real power is concentrated with the supreme leader. He is in charge of he's the commander-in-chief. He elects the head of the judiciary. He's the only one who declares war and peace. He's the head of the state-run media. He controls the direction of domestic and foreign policy. So I can say the concentration of power is with the supreme leader.
Okay, and so let's move this down here.
But there is a president, and obviously, there is a president. There is a Speaker of the House.
Okay, can you tell me more about that?
The president is Hassan Rouhani. He just recently made a speech at the United Nations, but he's also a cleric as well. Some presidents have been clerics and some have not. If you know, in Iran, the political system, the religion and state are together. They're integrated. There's no separation of religion and state.
So the president is a cleric, the supreme leader is a cleric.
Correct.
So what is the relationship between the supreme leader and the president?
Well, the president is subordinate to the supreme leader.
Okay.
The supreme leader has much more power. Iran is the only country that the executive branch has no control over the armed forces.
So the supreme leader has
He
supreme
has.
control over the
Yes.
armed forces. And has the power shifted at all in Iran?
Well, not much so. The constitution, the original constitution was written in 1906. But
Okay.
in 1979, when there was a revolution, there became a new constitution. It was adopted in 1979.
So what is the difference, what are the differences between the original Constitution in 1906 and the new Constitution in 1979? How did that change come about?
Well, before the revolution, there was a monarchy, and it was religion and state were separated. It was a secular monarchy, but after the revolution, it became an Islamic revolution, Islamic state, and the constitution became more under Islamic jurisprudence and the Sharia law. The laws in Iran are under Islamic law, although some aspects of civil law are incorporated in it.
Okay. And then could you tell me a little bit about the revolution?
The revolution occurred, it began in the summer of 1978, and it lasted until February 1st, 1979. So I lived through it. It was a time of absolute chaos. There were massive strikes. The country was at a standstill. There were demonstrations. It was against the Shah. The Shah was the king, and they wanted him to overthrow him. Finally, it succeeded in 1979. The opponent to the Shah was a cleric by the name of Ayatollah Khomeini. He became the first supreme leader, and he opposed the Shah's modernization. He led the revolution from outside the country. He was exiled. In 1964, he was exiled to the neighboring country, Iraq. And then later in 1978, he was expelled. He went to France. He requested asylum in France, and from there, he recorded his speeches, and his cassette tapes were distributed in the country illegally, of course, and he led the revolution.
So living in this era and seeing the revolution yourself, how did this influence and change your life?
it changed my life dramatically. The direction of my life changed. You know, if I may say, Iran is 97-8% they're adherents of Islam, they're Muslims, and they're about 2% of the population are of other religions. They're religious minorities, and they are Christians, Jews. There is a sect called Zoroastrians, who are the ancient Persians, and Baha'is, who is a modern faith. So I belong to the Jewish community. And how it affected me, although Christians and Jews could live comfortably in Iran after the revolution, they were still subject to some restrictions.
Okay, and would Iran be a place, would it be a place that an American could visit? Or would want to visit, or would want to live?
Well, it's a beautiful country. It's a wonderful place to visit. The governments of Iran and United States are at odds right now, but from the experiences I have, the people culturally are hospitable. Of course, you need a visa to go there. As far as living there, before the revolution, there were about at least, I know, 60,000 Americans living in Tehran alone, the capital city. But there was a community for them. There were clubs, there were restaurants, there were TV station programming in English. Now that does not exist. So I would not say go and live there, maybe not be that comfortable, but I do know Americans who visit there, but it's still, you know, you have to abide by their laws. For example, women who visit Iran have to be covered. They have to cover their hair and they have to wear loose clothing.
And are there, if you don't abide by the law, what are the consequences? How does that go?
Well, you're arrested. You know, in Iran there's a compulsory hijab. That means it's not by choice, it's mandatory. So all women, either they're foreigners or from any other religious identities, have to wear it. So in Iran, for example, alcoholic drinks are banned. They're not, I mean, you may find it illegally, but they're not legally, you cannot buy liquor from a store.
So I would imagine with this kind of state, if you look at the radio, television, internet, press, and even the word of mouth, all of these kind of PR and media kind of things, it's all run by the state?
Yes. Yes, and heavily censored. There are a lot of journalists are in prison. There is not much freedom of speech or thought. I mean, that's the way it is.
And, you know, the internet is worldwide.
Correct.
And so you have access to the internet there.
There is access to the internet, but many sites are blocked. And the internet usually, I've heard, you know, I have communications there, it's slow. It's very slow. But there's still apps and people still find a way to, you know, as you said, the internet, the world is a small place.
So the journalists and the journalism, that's heavily guarded.
Yes.
But what about, you know, the media that we get about Iran to the United States? When we have, you know, American journalists or journalists from other countries, are they as heavy-handed with them as well?
I'm sure they need permits to go there, and what they report, I'm assuming, I mean, when they interview people in the streets,
Yes.
And sometimes people may not say what they think. They guard what they say.
And then about the hijab, are there specific rules about that?
Yes.
Maybe our viewers don't know the rules or don't quite understand what it is.
Well, before the revolution, women had a choice. They could wear or not wear, or how they covered themselves, what level, what degree. It was a choice. After the revolution, from the age of 6, as part of the school uniform, girls wear the hijab. And there are morality police in the street that stop you and reprimand you if you're not properly covered. So I forgot your question.
Oh, specifications.
The specifications are the first years, you know, I lived in the most fundamental, tumultuous times after the revolution. That was the time the new regime was changing all the new laws. It was very harsh. The hijab or the covering was one of four colors. We could wear brown, navy blue, black, or gray. And it was very loose, and we had to cover all the strands of our hair, sometimes to our mid-forehead, and no makeup, no nail polish. But what has happened in the last 40 years, women have become the opponents of many restrictions that are imposed on them. And instead of the headscarves going further down, it has slipped back. So hijab has become very much more looser than it used to be. When I was there, the headscarves have slipped back. Women do wear makeup, do put nail polish on. They wear different colors as well.
Throughout your life in Iran, has it always been the same? With the hijabs and with the morality police and the...
That's after the revolution.
Okay.
Before the revolution, it was very much like the United States, very Western, pro-West, modern, very different.
So, like, what would you wear before the revolution?
Just like here.
Okay.
Just like here. Latest fashions. We watched American movies. I wore miniskirts. I attended school dances. Very much like here.
So you went from a miniskirt to a hijab?
Yes. That's exactly what had happened, yes.
Got it. So you became, were you always a writer?
No, actually, my Northeastern is at my alma mater. I studied there. I studied accounting, business. I became a CPA. I was working as a certified public accountant for years. And then in 2009, there was an election in Iran where people demonstrated because they became very angry. They believed that the elections were stolen. Because it was between the second term of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who was currently the president, and Mir Hossein Mousavi, who was coming in his opponent. And they believed that the other would win, but Mahmoud Ahmadinejad became president again, and people became very angry. They went in the streets and demonstrated. So I was approached by a law firm in Chicago. They desperately needed a Persian translator. They had asylum seekers, and they wanted somebody to translate. So I fell into this path. I began to translate, and I really enjoyed it. So since then, I've been doing that. I volunteer for the National Immigrant Justice Center. We're working on a case right now. And there is a movie that I subtitled. There was 80 hours of recording. I find it it's fun. And I'm very passionate about the topic of the Middle East because it's a very important region of the world.
Excellent. And so you've had your experiences, and they're very interesting, and it's something that not all Americans are familiar with.
Correct.
With our culture. Sometimes people aren't familiar with this. So what inspired you to actually publish a book?
My experiences are very unique because, again, as a religious minority in Iran, I fully experienced the pre-revolution era. I lived through it, the revolution, and I lived in the Islamic Republic. And to add to the uniqueness of my story, I have an Iranian father and a British mother. I always felt that I needed to share my story with the world to refresh their memory of what happened in Iran, what was the country of my youth that provided the foundation of who I am, and what it became, because it dramatically changed. And the structure and stability of the Middle East has changed because of the revolution.
Excellent. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how corruption changed and what caused the change in Iran.
Well, I believe every country, there's corruption in majority of places. It depends on their level. Some countries have more corruption. Unfortunately, in Iran, there is corruption does exist because there's a very high inflation rate, high unemployment. There are sanctions imposed on Iran. A lot of funds have been diverted to outside of the country. And corruption is a problem. And mismanagement of resources.
And then what do Iranians feel lies ahead of them for governance?
For governance, well, the supreme leader is currently 80 years old. And the majority of Iranians are very young. About 2/3 of the population were born after the revolution. The supreme leader eventually will be, there'll be a new one. And with a new president, the presidents in Iran are elected for 2 terms, 8 years total. So if the supreme leader happens to pass away, then the president will be more important in his role because there will be a transition period for the election of the next supreme leader.
So there are term limitations.
For the president, not for the
For the
supreme
president,
leader.
not the supreme leader,
Correct.
and that's 2 terms for the president.
Yes.
We have a caller. Caller, are you there? Caller? Do we have a caller? Maybe. We'll see if the caller comes back. So tell me, what is your favorite part of your book?
Of my book?
Yeah.
Well, favorite part of my book, I think, I don't call it favorite, but it's the night I was having my daughter, I was delivering my daughter at the hospital, and that's the time when the Iraqis invaded and attacked Iran. They attacked Iran. The Iraq and Iran are neighboring countries, and they attacked Iran on that night. And an 8-year war pursued. So that night was pretty dramatic because there were airplanes above us, and it was a dramatic time.
Wow. And I was going to ask you about geography.
Yes.
Can you tell me about some other surrounding?
Well, Iran is a very large country in the Middle East. I believe it's the 18th largest country in the world. It is sandwiched between Afghanistan and Iraq, which America has been involved in both of them. But unlike the majority of Middle Eastern countries, Iran is not an Arab nation. Iranians are of Persian ethnicity, and they speak Persian, which is also known as Farsi, while the Arab countries obviously speak Arabic. So that's different. And to the north is the Caspian Sea, but it's the largest lake in the world. In originality, it's a lake, but it's called the sea. And to the south is the Persian Gulf, which we hear in the news all the time.
Right.
Where the oil tankers pass by the Strait of Hormuz. It's a narrow strait at the south of the country.
Excellent. And we've got to wrap this up. Sorry we couldn't get to the caller. Let me just show you some Mayor Tycoon here. D-Tycoon Show. To reach D-Tycoon, yahoo.com. And we have an upcoming job fair. Connect with local employers. And there it is. Every month at the Rogers Park branch of Chicago Public Library, 6907 North Clark Street, Chicago. And we have all kinds of employers, and job seekers and employers are always welcome at our job fairs. And also, I am running for 49th Ward Committeeman. D. Tycoon worked with me when I ran for alderman, and I'm working with Doc Walls and a whole bunch of other great people, and Trudy Leong, of course. So where there's a will, there's Bill. And we're also supporting Bill for Judge of the Circuit Court, Ninth Sub-Circuit, Cook County Judicial Circuit, vacancy of Marvin P. Luckman. And I am also collecting petitions. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the interview.
Me. Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to speaking with you again very soon.
Thank you so
meeting
much.
with you at the annual WTTW.
I will look forward to that.
All right, and thank you.